Well, Asia, it's great to be with you. These sanctions are sanctions that punish Russia right now, Vladimir Putin's inner circle. But you're right, they don't stop the war militarily. What they do is they make the costs extremely high. And these are long-term propositions. So we're going to see continued efforts. And this is why President Biden is in Europe today, in Brussels in particular right now, is to basically work with Europe and saying we are going to have to continue these sanctions for the long haul. And they are developing plans for how to support Europe in this transition. And a significant part of the transition is in transitioning away from energy dependence on Russia. And that takes time. It's not the snap of the fingers. And that's going to require a lot of coordination with the United States and other allies. So we're working on different timelines of the military operations on the ground versus the sanctions. But they all are part of this product of having an end game that the United States and our allies creates to push Vladimir Putin out of this invasion.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding you correctly, this next round of sanctions that we're expecting, targeting the inner circle, so this is Russian oligarchs who are helping to fund this aggression, the long-term positions, primarily energy reliance from Europe, as we know, that has been kind of the crux of this issue on Russia's exports at this point. But I've got to wonder, we've already seen the direct impact from the sanctions. Even though they've been incrementally introduced, we've seen the ripple effect that it can have not only on Europe, but globally. What are you expecting from this next round of sanctions as far as the impact domestically here in the U.S., but also internationally?
Yeah, well, certainly what we're watching is the impact, not just of the sanctions negatively, but also the fact that Russia is bombing a breadbasket for the world in Ukraine. And that's creating food insecurity in many economies, as well as the energy insecurity issues that we're talking about. So the couple layers of sanctions that we're really looking at right now are, first and foremost, as you described, the targeted sanctions on these oligarchs and the transatlantic cooperation to essentially punish the inner circle. But there's also now a big effort on countering evasion of sanctions, and that's going to be discussed at the G7 meetings as well. So there's the EU, European Union meetings, NATO meetings, and also G7 partners. And so trying to work with these partners to prevent evasion. But yes, the sanctions do have over time a damaging impact on all economies, which is why it took painstaking diplomacy to get a unified program from Europe with the United States to what is now happening in Russia, which is taking their economy. I think we're going to see continual announcements of American support in this area, and countries beyond just Europe pitching in to try to cut new deals to help Europe weather this economic impact.
And speaking of American support, one of the big focuses of President Biden's trip is to present a more unified front with our Western European allies. What's the state of that alliance right now?
Well, currently, it's very strong. In many ways, the paradox of this entire war, this episode, is that Vladimir Putin tried to undermine and weaken American relations with Europe and unity amongst NATO countries. But he's had now the opposite impact on these relations because of this war and this invasion. And so we're seeing countries step up, in particular in Eastern Europe, and the president will go to Poland as well to thank the Poles for the millions of Ukrainians that they're housing now and taking care of, who are fleeing, who are refugees. And now we have 100,000 American military personnel in Europe stationed along the Eastern Front and throughout Europe that are going to be solidly there for the long haul. And so we're seeing a real solidification of this relationship and the U.S.-European alliance born out of necessity right now, but certainly something that is going to be a foundation for America's global leadership over time.
Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State and President of the Washington Strategy Group. Always good to have your insight. Thank you so much for joining us.